Hello there, everyone. Welcome to another episode of TAPCAF Transmissions, the only Star Wars podcast that doesn't refer to itself as the only Star Wars podcast anymore. I am your host, Corey, and joining me, as always, is my other host, Justin EckhartsLadder. How are you doing, Mr. Ladder?
You kind of went on me a little raw there. Like there was like 30 seconds of silence before you did the intro. I wasn't sure what was going on.
I was going to
couldn't even
start
see you.
before, but you were like drinking, so I gave you time to finish your gulping, but I think the gulping was caught in the initial parts of the audio, so I don't know. I figured
Sound Monkey will get it. Sound Monkey will get it.
well, I
I'm the
figured like we'd done the count in for the Audacity recording, so anything was fair game. It's just I saw the cup go up to your lips, and I figured it was all over.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
See, and now I just did that.
Okay. So should we do like you want to tell the fine people what's going on today?
Well, today we are going to be talking about our first comic series in a while. We're going to start off on Tales of the Jedi, which has a bunch of different arcs. Today we are doing all the issues of the Golden Age of the Sith arc, and we'll probably work those in throughout the Yuzon Vong War. We decided to do this partially because there's some new Tales of the Jedi television content coming up. It's almost certainly going to have nothing to do with the comics, but the name works out, so the SEO is there.
Yeah, you're right. Probably nothing to do. I think the one that the guest that I've heard for the series will be anthology. Probably a lot of Clone Wars stuff, unfortunately. And people are like, "Oh, you hate the Clone Wars?" No, I don't hate the Clone Wars, but for people our age, especially, like we've been getting a lot of Clone Wars stuff for a long time. I never understand when people are like, "We need more Clone Wars stuff." Like that's what we've been getting for 20 years. Like
you are getting very defensive in this argument with yourself, I will say.
yeah, like kind of a clone war almost.
Wow,
That's against myself.
perfect. I don't disagree with you. I do think there's been a lot of Clone Wars, and especially with like even the Bad Batch coming up, which is technically not the Clone Wars, but it's about clones in a war, and there's probably going to be another scene of a Jedi somewhere in there. But I don't imagine that all of it's going to be Clone Wars. There's probably going to be some Clone Wars stuff in there.
Yeah. I'm okay with some. I just if it's all Clone Wars, like this is what Obi-Wan's cousin's pet keeper's Jedi nephew did. Like I'm gonna be a little annoyed with that.
I'd think that's kind of interesting. Like Obi-Wan's cousin's pet keeper's nephew was a Jedi. Did they know each other? Did they know this relationship existed?
No, I mean that's like 4 degrees of separation, so it's not as close as you'd think.
Well, I don't know how many degrees of separation being someone's pet keeper actually counts as. Like, is it just in the Kevin Bacon sense of it? Like,
well, it depends if you've only met the pet or not. Like if I've got a pet keeper who comes and we do a faceless handoff, then it's like there's a full, 2 degrees between us or whatever. But if I'm handing off my Wrath Tar to him every day, then we're immediately next to each other.
Yeah. So a pet, an animal can count as a single degree of separation, is what we're saying here.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
For sure.
Well, does it?
Well, he's like the facilitator, right?
Yeah, but if I see a bird and then like Joe Biden sees a bird 2 days later, not to get political, but does that mean I'm then 1 degree separate or 2 degrees separated from Joe Biden?
It depends how well Joe Biden and you know the bird.
Okay.
Like if you just see the bird, no. But if it's like
if this is a pigeon that comes up and eats in front of us, does that count? Because I'm assuming if it's a parrot that comes up to each of us and says something obscene, then that probably counts because that's a conversation you're having with that bird.
That's a lot closer, yeah. I think it depends whether it's back and forth, but
all right, so anyway. All of this and more discussion of relevant Star Wars topics in today's TAPCAF Transmissions.
Yep. And next week, I guess we'll be back to the Yuzon Vong.
Yes, Agents of Chaos, Jedi Heroes Trial? Jedi, one of the first one.
Yeah. One of those. It'll also be the last week for Halo, so maybe we'll have a brief conversation about that, I assume.
Yeah, we could technically do another whole week on Halo. I have not kept up with the show for the
No,
last few
me
weeks.
neither.
Because I started rewatching it with Dana, and she's been gone, so we're still behind on that. I don't want to watch it twice within the same week, and we started watching Umbrella Academy instead. So it,
Yeah, there's one big moment that if you're a Halo fan, you're going to be spoiled of, most likely from this most recent episode.
well,
I
if
won't be
you're
the
watching
one.
this podcast, you probably saw Justin tweet about it already. Like, I don't know how many people there are that are like that separated, because I'm sure you're probably
Yeah.
making a video about it right now while we're doing the
No,
podcast too.
I've been too hard on Halo lately, so
Okay.
I'm taking a break. If it was a good episode, because I did actually watch this one. If it was an episode I liked, I was going to cover it. I didn't really like it, so it's going to be a skip for me.
Okay, fair enough.
But what was I going to say? Yeah, I did tweet about it. Like when it comes to spoilers, usually my thing is I'll wait a week, or I'll go by, like, for The Mandalorian, I'll start tweeting spoilers or using spoilers in my video titles when the official marketing does.
Right.
But for this, it was like everybody was talking about this thing, so I had to make a couple of little jokes about it. It wasn't a huge spoiler anyway, but yeah. If you've watched the episode, you probably know the moment I'm talking about.
All right. Any other Star Wars news to talk about before we get into Tales of the Jedi? Like there was the leak of Jedi Fallen Order 2's title from Jeff Grubb, who's usually very reliable with his leaks. It is going to be, this probably isn't a real spoiler, like it's just a name of the game, but Jedi Survivor is apparently going to be the title there. But like you were even saying when Fallen Order 1 was announced, like they were still drawing up the promotional images while you were all in the room.
Mention that. Yeah, so I was with EA when we did like a really early play test of the game at E3. I think that would have been 2018 maybe. But yeah, they were actually they didn't have the title set until the day of. And I was talking to like some of the Fallen Order, as we now know, people. And yeah, they had a bunch of titles. Some of it I think was kind of conversations with Lucasfilm. But it was pretty clear to me that they were, like, one thing that it seemed to me is that they were trying to kind of invoke the Jedi Knight style of title from the past games, where, you have Jedi Fallen Order, and for a sequel you could continue Cal's story with Jedi. It's Survivor, right? That's the new one. Jedi Survivor. Or if you wanted to, you could just do Jedi something completely different, kind of like Jedi Knight did with there was Jedi Outcasts and Jedi Academy, which Kyle Katarn was in both, but in Jedi Academy obviously it's a different story.
Well, they've always referred to the franchise as the Jedi franchise in their other announcements of stuff and in the job listings and stuff, like being on the Jedi team. So makes sense.
Yep. The only thing that I saw was, let me just see here. I actually just checked the Star Wars Leak subreddit. Apparently there's a new audiobook coming out, or an audio production. Have you listened to any of those yet? They're pretty good.
No. I think I have the script for, what is it? Tempest Runner. Tempest Runner, they sent us the script thing for. I think that was one of those. We got
Brotherhood we should probably read at some point.
Yeah, I have been looking forward to reading that because it's apparently very good. But I'm not sure when we'd be able to fit that in. We could technically do that before getting back to the NJO next week, but
yeah, we could. Maybe that's something to consider. Like, for me, it was. I think it is going to be good. I actually do, like. I know I was going to joke about this at the beginning, but I do feel Clone Wars burnout. So, but I think this book's going to be good. No, I kind of do want to read it anyway. It's just kind of why I haven't been like when that new Lando Luke book comes out. Like, that's going to be. I want to read that kind of day one.
Right.
But for this, like, I think maybe we should do this next week. Let me see how long it is. I've got it right in front of me.
It's like 300 pages. But I think Like I
Yeah.
think it covers their relationship earlier than the Clone Wars as well. So like, is your Clone Wars burnout a burnout on those 3 years with a bunch of Tamura Morrisons running around, or is it a
No,
burnout on the prequel era generally?
it was the prequel era in
Okay.
general. I also just kind of found, I don't know why, but I never really found the Obi-Wan Kenobi stuff and Anakin stories super compelling, which I don't know why. I guess because it always felt somewhat limited in the story they could tell. That being said, I am open to this book, and I think it could be really good. So let's do that next week then.
All right, we'll do Brotherhood next week. NJO, Mr. Lucino can wait one
Yeah,
more cycle. But
that week or the week after, depending on if we need a comic break.
I don't
'Cause
think.
the NJO books are pretty easy to read. They're pretty short.
Yeah, I think the two Lucino ones are relatively short as well, or it's just
Mhm.
very thin paper. But we'll have to check. We'll see how we're feeling next week.
I know I crushed both the Dark Tide books, I think, in pretty much one sitting each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not an especially dense series until you get to Star by Star, I think.
Mhm. Yep.
Dense
Yeah,
or
I
lengthy.
think that's pretty much it for the news. I mean, Celebration is coming up very soon. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about there. We should probably, before Celebration, do a kind of big predictions episode, or at least work that in.
Yeah.
But is there kind of right now anything that you are like a wish
Well,
that you hope for
in 2
Celebration?
weeks, it's going to be the 26th, right? So that's going to be Kenobi, right?
Yes.
So
It's Kenobi
that
26, 27. Yeah, it's one of
it's
those
one of
days.
them. When I
Yeah.
imagine if it's Kenobi coming up, we'd probably reschedule to the Friday if we had to do it.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah, good call on that. And yeah, Celebration is the 26th as well. So yeah.
I don't know that they've ever really done like the stuff that I'm looking forward to most right now is actually more on the video game side.
Mhm.
Um like I really want to know more about the Bit Reactor game, the like XCOM style turn-based tactics game. So I'll just tell the chat about that for a while. Nope, never mind. But that's what I'm looking forward to most right now is the game stuff because we have 8
Mhm.
games announced and almost nothing that we know about any of them. Whereas the shows, like they're all starting to chug along all right. Like I'm not really looking for news for a lot of them anymore. I'm more
Mhm.
just waiting for them to actually come out. Maybe if we get an announcement on when Bad Batch is starting, because uh, it feels a bit strange that we haven't heard anything about that yet. But
Mhm.
that's really where I'm looking for. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with the games. Just to be different though, I don't know if this is a stretch or not. I really would like another season of Book of Boba Fett, and Star Wars Visions. And I think the Visions
Right.
thing, from what I've heard, is very, very likely. So yeah, those would be my two kind of wants.
I can see that. I'm not sure. Like, I wouldn't hate getting another Book of Boba Fett season. I don't know that we will.
Yeah, I'm not
Of
sure.
all the shows that we've had so far, have had announced, that'd be the one that I'm like least convinced we're getting more of directly because it was already kind of treated as like Mandalorian interlude. So I feel like
Mhm.
anything else that they want to do with Boba in that is probably going to be, oh, Din goes and collects his friend Boba from Tatooine, who says a sentence about how he's set up spice running back to Kessel or whatever he plans
Mhm.
to do with his underworld thing. Like he feels like he's going to
Mhm.
be more of a supporting character in other stuff now rather than taking the focus in his own show because he didn't do that the first time either.
Yeah, I guess I agree that you are probably right. I just don't think it has to be that way. Like I think they could tell now after season 1 a more self-contained story, and then that would be
Mhm.
okay. Where like not everything has to be, even though kind of Boba Fett's considered a part of the Mandoverse. Like not every character in the Mandoverse has to be, you know, in the Mandoverse. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Well, we'll see. It'll be maybe we'll talk about this a little bit more next week, and then we'll probably have some news to talk about the week after that when we start covering Kenobi. So we'll figure out exactly how we're going to handle all that coming up. I don't want to push NJO stuff off for too long because that'll be like a month between
Mhm.
shows. So we'll have to see how that works.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you want to get into Tales of the Jedi, or is there anything else you want to cover quickly before we
No, I
hop
think
in there?
that's pretty much it.
All right.
So yeah, so we did Tales of the Jedi Golden Age of the Sith. This is the first chronological series in Tales of the Jedi. It's about 5,000 years BBY. However, it's, I think, the third maybe of the comic arcs actually released. It was, I think, 96, 97, where the first ones were earlier in the 90s.
Yeah.
So that was I'm not going to say it's been a long time since I've read Tales of the Jedi. I'm kind of curious, and most people that I've read suggested that you start chronologically, but I'm kind of wondering whether maybe kind of the earlier comics do a better job of introducing you to the era overall.
Yeah, because it's like Tales of the Jedi is the name of the third arc in the Tales of the Jedi stuff, right? So
Right. Yeah.
this and then the next one, Fall of the Sith Empire, were
Mhm.
released significantly after. And there's actually some
Yeah,
stuff that
about 3 years.
yeah, this sets up a lot of background for stuff that is pretty heavily discussed in Tales of the Jedi as well. But
Mhm.
I think some of it ends up being a little bit different from how it turned out to be uh, in Golden Age of the Sith when it ultimately came out. So that'll be something for us to look at a bit once we get to Tales of the Jedi.
Mhm.
I didn't. I don't know that it would really help if we had done it the other way around. Have you read all the way through Tales of the Jedi before? Because I've read individual issues from
Mm.
among the different arcs, but I've never actually read the whole thing.
It's something that I may have done, but like I probably read through all of like the actual Tales of the Jedi, like the volume, but I haven't read all the Tales of the Jedi comics. Like,
Right.
there's a lot of them. I think I was reading that there's like 2,000 pages in total, maybe, if that's right. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
because these 6 issues, technically is issue 0 through 5. They were about 30 pages each. So 26, 27 pages each. So the whole thing being that long makes sense.
Yeah.
There's even compared to Dark Empire, though, we were talking about this beforehand. It is a bit shorter, and there's less dialogue. It seems like than what Dark Empire had.
One thing they're not scared to do, we see this in issue 5 especially, and in issue 1 or 2, they will have pages of just art, which I actually appreciated. Like the
Yeah.
final battle we get in issue 5, they've got lots of pages where there's mostly just art. The duel in issue 1 or 2, mostly just art. So I kind of appreciated the time that
Yeah.
they let the thing breathe, which was nice.
So basically, this is setting up how the Republic and Sith empires kind of discovered each other, and leads into the Great Hyperspace War, which is what we get in the Fall of the Sith Empire. I believe it's all contained in the Fall of the Sith Empire comics.
Yeah, because then it's a time jump.
Yeah. So we've got a few comics here setting up Jory and Gav Darrigan.
Yeah,
and
that's like issue 0. Did you read issue 0, by the way?
I did. Did you skip it?
Nope, no, I read it.
Okay, cool. So we set up who they are. They're these hyperspace explorer wannabes, though I
really liked them as characters. I thought they were a lot of fun.
Yeah, they're staying with their parents at first, and their parents are basically like long haulers, freighter flyers, and they're working for the Hutt Arba. Unfortunately, their parents die unnecessarily running supplies to a base that had already been liberated. And in the Unification Wars on Koros Major, which is a pretty major, or in the Empress Tita system now, which is a pretty major system in the Deep Core.
I thought that was cool. Kind of explain the naming and stuff too.
Yeah,
the Empress Tita is around right now.
Yeah. So that plays a really important role in a lot of the early Republic stuff, especially, or this period of the Republic stuff, especially. So we set up who those characters are for a few of the issues, and then they decide they want to really make a name for themselves. They're kind of run off of Empress Tita, and they end up stumbling across the Sith on Korriban. So this is where we get the succession war between Ludo Kresh and Negasato. So Negasato sees their arrival as a way to find their way back to the Republic and take it over. Ludo Kresh thinks it's all a trap and they're all going to die. And basically the last few issues tell the story of how Negasato takes over the Sith. So that's the summary for anyone who hasn't read them.
Yeah, and the Sith are actually a little bit bigger than you might think too.
Yeah.
Sometimes in this era, they're portrayed as just kind of only being on Korriban, but they're in fact much larger. They've got maybe a few dozen planets kind of in the unknown regions. And they've got, their capital is on which planet's the
The
capital on
capital's on
again?
Psyos, and then Korriban is
Zaios,
like an
right?
important ceremonial world.
Yeah.
But Negasato, and I always forget if I'm saying the right name there. Like I want to say like Negasato, Frida Nad, and Agenta Paul all at once, but Paul is earlier, Frida Nad's later. So it is Negasato. But he
Yep.
says like, oh, you each have dozens of worlds to the different Sith Lords. Use
Yep.
that to end. That's probably not an exact amount. So they're probably in the hundreds of worlds overall from all the Sith Lords. Not to mention however many the head in the jar is commanding. So
Yeah, he was fun. There was a head in the jar, then there was also a Jedi brain in the jar in issue 0, which was fun.
well, Master Uru
Or
is
not-
at least
not yeah, he's not in a jar, is he? He's just a
his brain species swims in a different type of atmosphere. Like they can't live in oxygen, so he's kind of like Plo Koon but less mobile. So he's got to stand in a jar the whole time. And he dies very sadly later on. Spoiler alert, but
yeah.
But the other guy, Samus, I think his name is, like he is literally just a dude who lost a duel to Marco Ragnos, and
He's just still kicking around.
Yeah, he just didn't die from it. He's like, nope,
It's
I'm
like
good.
Futurama style.
And everyone just like respects this head in a jar so much.
Yeah, the Sith aren't particularly like Sithy in a way. The most Sith thing we get is Negasato and Marco Ragnos, or sorry, Negasato and Ludo Kresh are kind of dueling for the, because there's it's not like the rule of two is not introduced at this point. It's kind of just a thing where there's a Dark Lord of the Sith, like the ultimate Sith Lord, and then there's the underlings. And one thing that I thought was a little weird too is it seems like, so the Sith, and you've got to remember this came out in 96, and Tales of the Jedi started in 93. This is all still very new and kind of like what the Sith were, because
the prequels aren't out yet.
Exactly. You might remember, viewers and listeners, that Timothy Zahn wanted the Nogri to be Sith. So they were mentioned, and the Sith were mentioned by name in the novelization, but no one really knew what they were. Dark Jedi were kind of what would morph into Sith in a way. But the Sith in this, and what we learn, are a species that were on the planet Korriban. And I thought it was a bit weird, because it seemed to me that at one point Negasato was suggesting that Ludo Kresh was like a sullied Sith hybrid, but when he clearly is as well.
Yeah. I think there was a period where they were unclear whether Nagasato was going to be a human or a Sith hybrid, because I think he's the one on the cover of like issue 3 where he looks kind of like a creepy Danny DeVito.
Yeah, but like he's clearly got the little Sith like things on his face, and he's red. So
yeah, like there it is in like it is issue 3, no issue 2 technically, which is the third one. But I think the dude on the right with like the weird beard is supposed to be Negasato.
Okay. And he does look more human-like.
Yeah, because the stuff that turns into like the Sith tendrils. No, wait, the guy in front of him is supposed to be. Yeah, either way.
I think, is that Gav maybe? No, does Gav have a beard?
I don't know who the front one is. Like the front one looks like it's supposed to be Sato.
The cover art's wild.
But I don't know who the other person is supposed to be in that case. And I definitely don't know who the dragon is. I think that's supposed to be the Jedi, like the archivist Jedi who goes to.
Yeah.
But it's a thing.
It do be like
cover art is amazing for all of these comics.
Yeah.
Like that's where you get David Bowie Luke from Dark Empire. It's fantastic.
Yeah, not great. What did you think of the art overall, though? Because the art, Tales of the Jedi as a whole, has a very unique art style, which I actually personally really like. I think it's nice to have the distinction between the Old Republic stuff, or like the stuff of this era, and then the kind of the newer stuff. And I think that's something that maybe KOTOR misses out on a bit.
Yeah, I like it overall, but I don't like Coruscant's portrayal very much. Like, I don't like that. Like, I understand why you'd have like the different architectural styles for the Empress Theta system, and then the way that Korriban is set up. It makes sense there. But then when it gets applied to Coruscant, and there's just a bunch of people building all the same
Pyramids and stuff.
buildings that look like they're from the other two systems. It's just like on stacks
See,
of
my
somewhat built
guess
up
is
stuff.
that's because that's kind of what Coruscant looked like in the Return of the Jedi concept art. When it was what was it called again?
Revenge of the Jedi.
No, the what was Coruscant? What did George Lucas call Coruscant
Oh
again? Like the
fuck.
city plan.
Something can course or shit.
Why am I forgetting this? Some of the chat's got it now. I gotta figure this out because it's gonna drive me kind of crazy.
Just coming up with
Had Abaddon.
One.
I don't know why I forgot that, but anyway, the concept art for Had Abaddon has a lot of the kind of big pyramid structures.
Yeah.
So I assume maybe that's what they're referencing, but you're right. Like, it's an obvious kind of thing to do. You use Egypt because that's what anybody who thinks Egypt in our real world thinks ancient.
Well, they actually had to. One of the few art things that they were told to redo by Lucasfilm was, I think, Marco Ragnos's sarcophagus because it was too clearly ripping off Egypt. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what it looked like before that. Like now it's okay, but before it looked like it was too...
just coming with the cease and desist. Pay me royalties.
Is Marco Ragnos ever alive in anything? Like, is it the most alive he gets?
I was just trying to think of that, and I don't think so.
Like, I think the most alive he gets is when he's possessing Tavion. That's it. Or Rosh, one of them.
Yeah, I don't like. We see him lots of times in kind of spirit form. I think he's in spirit form in one of the I don't because this isn't his first appearance.
No.
I think he's in spirit form in other places, but one thing I do think is cool is how Knights of the Old Republic, it loses a lot from this era. It doesn't maintain a lot, but it does keep the Sith. Like Marco Ragnos, I think you could probably go to his tomb. Same with, you mentioned Ajunta Paul. Kind of, I don't think Ludo Kresh, I don't think he's in it at all, but Negasato, I think you can go to all those guys' tombs. I remember the idea of these ancient Sith Lords on Korriban when I first played Knights of the Old Republic was so interesting to me, because it's like you're already in this ancient era that you'd never been to before, because I hadn't read the comics before I played KOTOR for the first time. And then there's all these other even more like kind of long dead Sith. I remember going to before I had a computer, but I remember going to the library and like just typing all the Sith names on the computer, just trying to find books for them.
Yeah, like Marco Ragnos gets a lot of play in a lot of places. Mm-hmm. He's got to be the most
him and
ubiquitous. Yeah. Well, he's like Exar Kun's great granddaddy of the Sith or something.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So a lot comes down through Negasato and Ludo Kresh, but he gets too much credit. He doesn't do enough. Like he comes in. So we should probably talk about the earlier Jory and Gav like setup issues first. But when Ludo Kresh and Negasato are having their duel, then Marco Ragnos comes in and stops them with his warning about like, you must figure out what to do. It's the most there's no informational value in what he says other than the fact that like, hey, I'm back from beyond the dead. I'm a ghost. And I'm going to tell you, make the right decisions, not the wrong decisions.
Yeah, he makes everything way worse because he appears right before the Jedi, or not the Jedi, right before the ship shows up. So everyone kind of interprets his warning in their own way, which leads to a pretty big civil war among the Sith, which is, for those who haven't read this comic, you don't actually see the Sith fight the Republic in this. The Sith are only fighting amongst themselves, and it kind of ends sort of on a cliffhanger with them, with Marco Ragnos, or sorry, I'm going to keep saying Marco Ragnos, with Negasato kind of winning and getting ready to attack the Republic.
Yeah, because he's managed to make the Massassi warriors loyal to him, which is helpfully explained to us in 2 frames where it first
Yeah.
says loyalty needs to be earned, and then the next frame is I have earned their loyalty. Like,
And they're sick, by the way.
love it.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff.
Why choose showing or telling when you can do both in the same thing, but not actually show? But yeah. So to jump back to the start, I was a bit unclear on Jory and Gav's ages. Like they seem like they're probably in their mid-20s, but they're also living with their parents. So it's really foreshadowing the modern economic situation that a lot of us face. So it's good to see that intergenerational solidarity.
Yeah, maybe it's also like the thing where like people from the 90s and the 80s just look older. Like you look back at the old high school yearbooks and it's like that guy had a beard. I think that guy was an accountant at the same time.
Are you sure you're not just thinking of like you watching Dawson's Creek and thinking that's what high schoolers looked like in the 80s and 90s?
The worst thing for that has got to be Grease, where it's got like clearly just like old men. Like I forget is it Kaneki? Not Kaneki. Oh, have you ever seen Grease?
Yeah.
What's the really old one? Maybe it is Kaneki, but yeah, they just got clearly just ancient people playing these teenagers.
From Nagasato to 5 O'Clock Shadow.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're not allowed to go anywhere. Their parents are it seems like they're almost debt slaves to this hut, but they really try to make it seem like, oh, this hut is really a nice person the whole time. Like he's just doing what's good for business.
I mean, by hut standards, not bad. But I mean, like the hut doesn't send. Well, to be fair, he does kind of like almost get the kids killed, but you know, he gives them multiple chances and stuff. Also, it was Sonny that I was thinking of for Grease, who's played by who's he played by? Anyway, the guy that played him was 32 years old.
Yeah, well, look at Buffy, where they're like early on in high school, I think, when the show starts. But the guy who played Xander was like 29, and like all the other actors and actresses were like mid-20s at least.
Yeah, I mean, nothing better than you cast a high school student and it's someone who's like been through menopause, or a man who's probably not allowed to go near high schools for whatever reason.
Who's probably older than a lot of high school teachers, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my sister's a teacher, and she's not a high school teacher, but she's a teacher, and she's 28. So that to me is like the I'm getting old thing, when I realize like a lot of my friends are teachers and like my age or younger. But
yeah, like so many of my friends who like stayed in our hometown became teachers. Like you stay in Niagara, you're either a teacher, a nurse, or a drug dealer. And most of my friends chose category 1 and 2. A few went into 3, and like good for them. But those are the only reason you stay, and just that's most of the teaching staff right now, and they're all younger than these actors were. It makes me feel incredible.
Yeah, they've all got Snapchat and
like I know what you were all doing 10 years ago. How are you in charge of these kids?
Dude, I know what some of these guys are doing on the weekend. What do you mean?
Well, a lot of them I haven't talked to in a while, so I don't know what they're on.
I think the weirdest moment of my life was when, well, not the weirdest, as a kid, it was grade 6. We went to this camp, this like at the end of elementary school, which
Russ, that was
6.
Camp Wahanawin. Go on.
It was Camp Mush Mush for us. And I remember I was sick, not actually sick. I was probably like homesick or whatever. And I was kind of tore up because the girl who was going to go to grade 6 prom with me ended up saying she wanted to go with my friend instead. So, you know, I was
all because of the camp trip.
What's
or
that?
Was that like because they connected on the camp trip, or that's why you were staying home? Because you knew?
No, it's just they connected. No, I didn't stay home. I went on the trip, but you know, at one point I got homesick, so I went to like where the teachers all were. They had like their own cabin, and when I went there, and it felt really late. It was probably like 9 o'clock. They were all like listening to music and eating nachos and stuff. I specifically remember for some reason them taking out nachos, and I'm like, these teachers are real people. Like, what the fuck is going on? And like they're drinking beer and stuff. And that was just like the moment as a kid where my perceptions on the world were shattered.
Yeah. Like for me, one of my student teachers in I think grade 3, we had a student teacher, which is like the earliest I'd ever had one, and it was
That is really early.
it was my babysitter. So
Oh, that's
like
weird.
she was our neighbor, so she'd babysit us all the time, and then she was the student teacher in my class. It's like, wait, why are these teachers from the outside world?
My my mom used to be a chaperone, and so there was one trip where my mom chaperoned. My grandmother came along. Somebody in the school who I was unrelated to but had the same last name went along, and my teacher had the same last name. So there were 4 Miss EckhartsLadders on the trip, and it was just
It is weird that that's your legal name.
yeah, for sure.
But you did your whole video on where you got your name, and then you never even mentioned that. You made up some bullshit about movies like Jacob's Ladder and
Nope, just lazy. I just dox myself every time I put a video out.
anytime Charlie streams your Facebook conversations. But yeah, so we enter in the middle of the Unification Wars on Empress Teta. That's how it kind of opens, because we have the Jedi story and we have the Jory and Gav board at home story, and they connect.
It's like the very end of the wars.
Yeah, because there's only one holdout planet left, Kirik, which they actually forgot to put in some of the Wizards of the Coast guides for the system. So
someone was fired for that blunder.
It's never actually been resolved. The most that's been said is just assume it's an older name for one of the planets. They never really bothered to say which one. But
Okay.
but yeah, so there's like this giant storm of ships coming from the sky, because there's one of the Empress Teta loyalist strongholds is being surrounded by rebels. We don't really get to the whole thing about like, oh, did how popular is this unification effort versus how much of it is just an imperialist
Strong
war
arms.
of conflict.
Yeah.
But
They're like, it's good for the economy, and the Jedi are like, that's good enough for me. Let's use battle meditation.
So yeah, Odin introduces us to this concept he's discovered called battle meditation. It's used to win the battle. He seems to have no problem with this at first, but then he sees the one freighter crash with 2 people dead in it that were technically not even really in the battle. The Daragon parents, who again didn't really need to be there. Like, you don't need to run supplies to the now liberated thing. He's like, this is horrible. I will never take part in a battle again, because those
Like,
2 died.
Maybe you shouldn't have just jumped in with the battle meditation like first thing anyway. Like, I don't know. Maybe not great.
How did he develop this if he know it was a great battle tactic if he'd never really been in battle before and didn't have any interest in it afterwards?
He's described as somewhat of a scholar, so maybe he read about it. I will say I did like that he was a non-human Jedi.
Yeah.
And his design is really cool too, because he's like kind of reptilian, but also not. Like, he's kind of like a sea creature as well.
He does like kill the people who are going after Jory and Gav for. So Jory and Gav, they go from that to using the ship, which their parents put up as collateral, to Arba to try to pay off their debts and make some money. So they're trying to find new hyperspace routes. They find one that really sucks. They give it to the guild, and it's used by
total disaster.
What's the guy's name? Horse? Cahor?
Yeah.
I think it's Cahor.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cahor hears about it. He's like, oh, that's fast. And everyone's like, hey, maybe don't do that because you might die. And he says, no, dying is for idiots, not for me. So he sends his ship out there anyways. Shockingly, it gets destroyed. He gets pissed and wants to go after Jory and Gav. And Gav. Anyway, yeah. But yeah, so the Jedi advisors to Empress Teta kind of see the goons he's hired going after them, and this includes Odin and Odin like slaughters the assassins. So the other Jedi tells him like, hey, that wasn't very Jedi of you. After Odin has already sworn off killing for war efforts, like, oh, just get a little carried away sometimes.
Yeah, he's cool with just smoking fools in person, but
a freighter crash was too much for him, but just slaughter the other people.
Yeah, also, man, he's got a really scary face, and like he kind of they use the battle meditation in two ways, where it's like one is the hey, you guys are all gonna win the battle, and the other's like despair.
Yeah.
So seeing that kind of ugly fucking mug in my face would probably scare me as well.
Yeah. What did you think about T'Klock?
Who's that?
Cahor's little insectoid buddy, because this was easily my favorite part of the comics.
That was his little
Jiminy Cricket. I don't know what his species is, but
yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, nice little detail. I like the art on it as well.
Yeah, like I just love that literally everything Cahor does, the T'Klock just looks absolutely shocked. Like this is a whole new experience for him, and I could look at those scenes all day.
Yeah, they were good stuff. But yeah, the Jedi are really not kind of huge in this so much. Neither is the Republic. We really only get that kind of look on Coruscant, and then back to the Sith. But I'm assuming we're gonna get a lot more next comic.
Yeah, the next comics will be the Great Hyperspace Force. We'll see what Nagasato's forces end up doing. But he basically, rather than killing all the opposition, he's basically positioned his loyalists to take over Ludo Kresh's fleet. So he destroys Ludo Kresh's ship, but it seems like other than that, most of the Sith fleet remains intact. Like they don't get too banged up from this.
Was there I couldn't tell if there was supposed to be a mutiny on one of the ships, or
so most of the ships had mutinies where like the rest of the Sith Lords were killed off by their Massassi guards, which is what the whole loyalty thing was setting up, that they're all loyal to Nagasato.
Yeah.
And so like all the other Sith Lords are now dead. He's kind of the one remaining one, there were probably some other ones who were loyal to him, but I don't want to overshoot what could have been done in a source book here, but
it's just he gets a lot of play to that dark side of the moon, doesn't he? Because that's where his fleet is. That's where his base is. Do we ever get names for? I think we get names for some of these ship classes, but not all of them. I really like the look of the Sith ships, though. I like the look of all the ships actually, but the Sith ones have a pretty cool kind of style to them.
Yeah, there's at least the Daraphin and the Supremacy class used for stuff. I don't think there's
kind of like the little, almost like Mandalorian looking ones as well.
Yeah, because like the fighters that kind of look like the Devabs.
But I think all the ships have kind of like some of them almost look like they don't have sails, but a lot of them almost look like they've got sails. They've got big fins. It's just a really cool kind of style. We don't really see that much. The only time we really see that in like modern Star Wars is a bit with the Hutts, and then of course the Sith meditation sphere when that returns. But it's something that's kind of cool, and I hope Star Wars canon kind of gives ships an era like that as well.
Yeah, like there's also the solar sail on Dooku's swoop.
That's right.
So
a lot of them look like they're made out of rocks almost. Like they're very, very cool. And it's because it's easy for Star Wars to kind of just make something original trilogy aesthetic because that's what everyone knows. But this is definitely a bold step, and I'm a fan of it.
Yeah. So I think that covers most of this plot. So any other last thoughts on that before we move on to our next segment?
I will say I forgot they had the Sith symbol so early on. He gets it on his head.
Yeah. A lot of the Sith, I guess they put aside the whole I need to be branded with this later on.
Yeah.
And earlier on. I don't think many others have it.
Yeah, I mean, especially when they do the rule of two and half it's supposed to be operating, in the shadows. Probably not great to like have to pretend you fell in a hot iron every time before you go out. Normal folks don't get branded, although I guess if someone really challenges on it, you want it, you can just be like, wow, that's a pretty ignorant thing to say. You don't know my culture. Sith? Wow, okay. That's what you think.
They are very prone to...
Mm-hmm. It's like when they go to arrest Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith, the book. He's like, I'm not a Sith, but even if I was, don't be racist.
Actually, Sith is a religion.
It's more complex than that.
But
they're both in this one, so
yeah.
It
does seem like they try to set it up as more of the hierarchy between like the Jedi who took over and then the Sith species, but it looks like everyone's all kind of
and I don't know if like I kind of wonder whether there was something else originally planned, because they all look like the hybrids.
Yeah. Like, it seems like it evolved even over the course of this, but especially since this is a prequel, you'd think that some of that would have been established a bit more. But anyways.
Especially because they are clear. It's a bit weird, too, because they're very clear, like, when talking about the Jedi, that, like, they are just regular Dark Jedi who left, so there's no reason that, all the... Also, I will be right back. My kid just woke up.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's most of what we're going to be talking about for the Golden Age of the Sith. We do have a bunch of questions to get through, or to get to, and I've got my first Glupshido Appreciation Award segment. So I'll probably, once Justin's back, we'll go back into the Glupshido Appreciation Award, and then we'll get to the questions. Yeah, I think that sounds right. Jason did. You gotta expect it with that family, though. But it's a thing that happens with Star Wars, where they all just become Sith eventually. So, oh, here he is. Here they are. We've got a special guest appearance.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm on single dad duty today, but we can keep going.
All right. So yeah, I guess unless she has any thoughts on the Golden Age of the Sith, we can move on to the Glupshido Appreciation Award and then
Imogen,
go to
thoughts. Golden Age of the Sith. Honestly, really bad take from her. But yeah, let's go on to the Glupshido Appreciation Award. I'm curious on who you picked.
So I don't know if this is going to be too high profile, or if picking 3 characters was too strong of a take here. But do you have any guesses based on that?
Three characters.
What were you going to say before that?
I was going to say, I made this argument the other day that the ultimate Glupshido is actually Admiral Akbar.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Just so I think we're going to be on the same page. But 3 Cantina Band.
This is from books. Like, it didn't start as a movie character, which may be getting away from the intent. But
no, that's fine. Do you have another hint?
I feel like any hint I have would give it away.
All right, go ahead.
Let's hear it then. We are going to be talking about the directors, or Second Mistake Enterprises, also known as the Squibs.
Oh, okay. I forgot. Okay, that's a good one. All right, let's hear about the Squibs. These guys are fun.
So these are 3 characters that periodically show up throughout the later expanded universe, mostly in stuff by Troy Denning, though they do get used a little bit in other places. So they are 3 members of the Squib species from Skor, the planet Skor. These are Amala, Sly, and Grease. And if you are wondering what they look like, picture the most like generic fursuit that you can. Like what you'd think would be just like the standard, if someone was trying to explain what a furry was to someone else, what that would look
the
like.
image Fox News would use.
Yeah. And it's basically that. So these little blue furry rabbit horse things, and they show up. I think they show up first, both chronologically and publishing wise in rather Tatooine Ghost,
Mm-hmm.
where Han and Leia are looking for this picture or a painting. Han wants to give it to Leia because it's about like the Killick Mounds on Alderaan, and
Famous concept art.
the Squibs, aka the directors, are there looking for it as well. They're like pretending to work together, but then the Squibs decide they can sell the painting to the Imperial Remnant for even more money. These three are very greedy. They end
Yeah.
up not getting along super well with our solo heroes. And you'd think at the end of Tatooine Ghost, like, oh, we've seen the end of them, and you haven't, because these were critical characters to bring back.
Very critical.
I think their next appearance is in the Dark Nest books. I always thought they were in NJO for some reason, but they're not. Like I kept thinking they showed back up in NJO. They survived the Vong War, crucially.
Mm-hmm.
They had to, because they are very important characters for the rest of Star Wars. And for kind of like throughout Dark Nest and Legacy of the Force, and I don't think they show up in Fate of the Jedi. They might. I don't think they do. Which one is Apocalypse in?
Apocalypse is Fate of the Jedi.
Okay, well then they do. They show up everywhere.
Yeah.
So basically, if you've read Legacy of the Force, and what stands out to most people is how Karen Travis's books from that period really insert the Mandalorians and make them very prominent, which makes it a lot easier for Troy Denning's Squibs to get under the radar, because they come in all the time.
Is it possible that that's like a Troy Denning self-insert? You did mention how kind of fursuit-esque they look. I'm looking at the picture too, and I also noticed they're wearing loincloths. Does that mean they have like regular like penises under there?
I think they do.
Yeah.
I don't think Troy Denning's a furry, and I don't want anyone to come away from this discussion thinking that either of us have anything against furries. There's absolutely nothing wrong
No,
with
I
furries.
do.
That's
No, I
just
think there's
the
something wrong. I'm just joking.
that's just the only
No,
way to describe
totally
them
fine.
visually, where it's the
Yeah.
the typical.
They look like they look like they look like something.
They look
that
like a
someone would pay
fursona that
someone-
yeah.
for like someone would commission that art on Twitter for their custom blue fursona.
Yeah.
Okay, look like
but
okay.
anyways.
Go to the. Can you please go to the Squib Wikipedia page and then scroll down to the behind the scenes bit, because that that is a furry. Like that's not a Star Wars thing. That's just a furry there.
Behind the scenes,
The very bottom. But that section does also note, and Troy Denning, he includes this. I think you've talked about this before. He just seemed to really like the Squibs because they are originally from a very old West End Games book, Scavenger Hunt from 1989. So that's
he didn't invent Squibs. He just includes the directors, the three directors specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So we're mostly talking about Amala, Sly, and Grease, not the Squibs as a whole. But but yeah,
they're
so
sort of like they're the kind of creatures you'd imagine, like three of them, like in a long coat with like a top hat on, like trying to sneak into an 18+ movie.
unless they're in the 18+ movie, but this is I'll put it up on stream so people can see the art. But yeah, so they show up in Dark Nest, and Dark Nest is about the bugs as well. So anything Killick related, they come up in. So in Dark Nest, they are doing shipping between the Galactic Alliance and the Colony, which is the Killick stuff. So I don't know if it's ever explicitly set up, but I would like to posit here that that the way they found the Colony was via Killick Twilight. They got taken in there by that. It's not just because that Troy Denning just likes writing about squibs and bugs, but
Squibs and bugs in Lemur.
But so what the Killicks are doing via Gree, Amala, and Sly, and there's they each have their own different personalities. I don't want to group them together too much here. They're their own self-actualized individuals.
They love gambling, I remember.
They do, and they were trying to anything that they were shipping out to other insectoid species in the galaxy. It was kind of there were usually Killicks hidden in it, and they almost Trojan horse took over a New Republic fleet this way. It was a huge mess, but it also meant that a lot of the insectoid species in the galaxy were like, hey, we should all join the Killiks. So, big problem with that. Eventually, Han and Leia got them shut down, and they did not appreciate this. So, I think most of their plot, from what I can remember throughout Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi, was that they, after having their shipping thing shut down, like 4 to 10 years earlier in Dark Nest, they were taking out basically they were trying to put out hits on all of the solos, and none of this went well. But this is also at the point where like Jason's becoming chief of state slash Sith Lord. I think they still had a hit out on him at that point. I'm making up a lot of these later parts just from memory, because the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm remembering how ridiculous the storyline gets.
But it all sounds right to me, so if it's not strictly what happened, it's close enough.
This was harder to research than I expected, because a lot of it is not on Wikipedia for some reason. And the pages they do have on Wikipedia for them are very poorly written. So this is mostly me starting.
So what you say is they're in need of a hero.
So once we get to Dark Nest and beyond, this is going to be most of what we're tracking. But that is my Glup Shido Appreciation Award.
It was great, Corey. Thank you very much. Are we gonna do it every week or every 2 weeks? We try to do it every week.
Let's not do it next week. We'll do it on the off weeks where we're not talking about a book, because it can take some time.
Yeah, I like that. Okay,
like when we're doing comics, when we're doing shows, we can throw it in there.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, guys, if you've got somebody that you would like us to maybe talk about for Glup Shido, I mean, I think the part of the point is that we surprise each other with it, but still, it's possible. Let us know. But do we have any emails or anything we want to go through, Corey?
We do have a few emails that I wanted to bring up here. I mostly tried to pick the ones that were directly related to Tales of the Jedi, like usual. There are a few that are more related to either Obi-Wan stuff, which we're going to have its own episode for, so I've started that, or NJO, specific book questions. I've started that as well, so we'll get to those when we get to them. Our first question is, it's not actually related to Tales of the Jedi, but it is important to talk about. It is from Tyler and the Galaxy RPG crew, who say, long-time listener, first-time questioner, I run a Star Wars RPG podcast, and a lot of your headcanon and comments are a huge influence on the way I've built my universe. The one thing I really want to include is the Winter/Akbar love story, but I'd love to know where you would have had it go if it were more text as opposed to subtext.
Well, I honestly think we talked one time about how it kind of made its way into text in the original Essential Characters Guide. But I don't know, I think Akbar's a busy man, Winter's a busy woman. I think, they would have been happy. I don't see kids in their future, even adopted kids. I think that they would have been just happy having each other to go home to at night after, days running the military, or days, caring for all the solo children. And I think then after they retire, they probably would have just spent some time traveling the galaxy, kind of like the rich people that never have kids. So that's kind of my headcanon.
I think it's best off kept in the subtext. I think it loses a lot of its magic if it comes out. Like, we need Tycho to be able to live his happy life as well. Everyone's happier the way it was.
I think it's for Tycho, Akbar would be like, your wife dated one really awesome dude before you, and low-key you'll never kind of compare like that for that's he's got that, and it's Akbar.
Yeah. And before, during, and after, really. But
yeah, occasionally during sex, Winter will say, give me your flipper or something, and I'll be like, what? Smack me with your flipper. What? I mean, yeah. She's she really, really likes salt water. She always wants to go to the beach.
The fact that you're saying this with your daughter just sitting on your...
She can't understand that yet. She's too little.
Anyways, thank you for the question, Tyler. Our next question comes from Norman, who says, I'm so excited for you guys to talk about the Golden Age of the Sith. It's one of my favorite eras from the expanded universe, and it's what introduced me to the expanded universe. I love whenever it gets called back into other stories, especially the Cult of Ragnos and Jedi Academy game. But how do you two feel about
Yeah.
such callbacks? Do you think they make the setting feel deeper, or do they make it too dense? I can't imagine most readers immediately knew what the Sith meditation sphere was when it showed up with Lumaya.
I think in the Cult of Ragnos is a good one. That's from Jedi Academy, right? It's Jedi Academy that's from, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's
because
Rosh and
yeah,
Jaden.
Raj gets that. Um, yeah, and for that and the meditation sphere, like I think both of those, the meditation sphere is in Fate of the Jedi. In both of those, I think there's enough context
Yeah.
for like people. It's a Sith meditation sphere. It explains this was an old Sith ship that seeks out Sith. So if you know what it is, you get a little extra, a lot extra, and you appreciate kind of the design. And with like the Cult of Ragnos thing, it's like, oh, long dead Sith Lord, powerful scepter. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty clear about that. So if you know the extras, it's really just a little bonus.
Yeah, I don't think they're like. I think most people's experience with Marco Ragnos is probably from Jedi Academy,
Yeah.
like without having necessarily seen any of the other stuff. And I don't think there's anyone who leaves Jedi Academy feeling like they were lost and didn't know what any of that was. So I think those are all handled really well, and that's kind of what I like my callbacks to be like. And I think James Luceno does a lot of this really well in books, in the book side as well, where he'll
Mhm.
make a lot of callbacks, but you can just as happily go through all of it, not realizing that this character had done random stuff in 30 other books. Where it mostly runs into problems is when you do require that background knowledge,
Yeah.
or if it gets into the galaxy feeling like too small a place where like the same character that has no reason to really show up in the same place ends up everywhere. But like
Mhm.
Marco Ragnos having been Lord of the Sith, trying to come back
He's
to
a
life, I
pretty
think
big. He's
that
a pretty important dude. Yeah.
yeah. Like I was joking earlier about how he shows up a lot in a lot of places and gets too much credit. But like the places he shows up individually, they all make sense for what he is. It's
Mhm.
not like he like everyone suddenly knows who he is or something, or like Luke starts his academy and he walks in the door the first day.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
but thank you, Norman.
Yeah. Good question.
Next question comes from Preston, who asks, what would be the most interesting what if scenario for Star Wars? I think it would be interesting if Obi-Wan was able to turn Anakin back to the light side on Mustafar.
Mm, I think Luke joining Vader for me is the most interesting one.
We kind
Episode.
of get that in Dark Empire for a bit, though.
Yeah, that's true. But Vader, or because I mean, Luke and Vader would have tried to overthrow Palpatine, I guess.
Yeah,
So, like whether they could have or not, I don't know. Maybe.
yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Like,
I really enjoy for what ifs. I really enjoy. I don't like doing them myself, but I find it really fun to read the official one. I wish Star Wars would do a what if like Marvel did. I thought that series was really cool. Even as someone who's like not the biggest MCU guy, like I thought the what if series was really cool and well
yeah.
made.
I think for me it'd be what if Anakin didn't die, like Anakin Solo.
Yeah,
I think
that's a
that
good one.
changes a lot. But
Yeah, that is a really good one. I was thinking more movies, but there's definitely some cool. I think maybe like you could do some cool what ifs, like what if Thrawn survived, or
what if Dex's diner had been shut down for health code violations when Obi-Wan went to check on where Camino was?
yeah, exactly. The and I'm sure we'll read these at some point, but the Infinities comics are pretty fun as well.
Mhm.
They're they take them to the max, but that's kind of how you got to do it, I think.
Yeah, like Qui-Gon surviving, coming up in chat, that's another that could be
That's a good one.
interesting.
Yeah,
A lot of the coolest ones are kind of like wish fulfillment on shutting down the conflict that leads to everything turning to shit, though. So it's
yeah,
like a lot of them end up being like roll credits. Like, what if Anakin had been granted the rank of master, and then it's just like title C roll credits.
yeah. One that I kind of was thinking about for this podcast was what if Plagueis survived and like
Yeah,
was behind the scenes with Sidious the whole time. Like what if they had actually been like the duo that Plagueis thought they were,
yeah,
rather than Palpatine's kind of stringing him along the entire time. I maybe not as successful, but yeah.
yeah. I mean, Vader would have maybe had all his limbs. What if Vader just had all his limbs? What if he didn't fall into
Mhm.
lava? that could be cool too.
Someone saying 5 surviving, and like, I don't think Palpatine would have ever let 5 survive. Like, he might have survived that one situation, but he would have met his end eventually, I think, before he really convinced everybody. But
So thank you, Preston. All right, the last question for the day is from Ethan, who says, Dark greetings, Corey and Eck. Hope you guys are having a good one. After watching the Book of Boba Fett, I think there could be a show or limited series focused around a Mandalorian clan or multiple clans in their various jobs, nomadic lifestyle, kind of like a Sons of Anarchy, but with Mandos instead of bikers. I also think there's potential for stories set in the sequel era about the Mandalorians defending their region of space from the First Order. What do you guys think?
I've had enough of the Mandalorians. I'm not a
Yeah.
huge Mandalorian guy. I'm sure it could be good. I like Sons of Anarchy, but that show kind of struggles with the fact that I actually really like the first few seasons of that show, but it struggles with the whole thing that many shows like that do, where it's how are you going to make action scenes stretched out for 4+ seasons? And yeah, I don't need any more Mandalorian stuff. I think I'm good.
Yeah, I think enough of the background stuff could just be left to source books. And like we're getting so much Mandalorian content in The Mandalorian and other Mandalorian stories, and like they've come up so much in Rebels and in
And you got the Django clone stuff, and I'd rather if I think canon is probably due to explore that at some point as well.
mhm.
So I'm good.
Yeah, like there's gonna be a lot more coming in with like Mando season 3, obviously, but also just like background in other shows. So I think that's gonna be more than enough Mando for me.
Yeah, I think the Clone Wars maybe demystified the Mandalorians a bit too much for my liking as well, but a lot of people like that. So
Yeah.
but it is what it is.
Ish. All right, that's gonna do it for this week's episode. Next week we are gonna be reading Star Wars Brotherhood by Mike Jen. So week after that, probably Kenobi. And we will get back to the NJO as soon as we can after that. So
Yeah, probably the week after that, most likely.
We'll keep you all posted on how that happens. You can follow us on Twitter at TAPCAF Transmissions for more updates on any episode changes or changes to the schedule. You can email your questions to tapcaftransmissions@gmail.com. You can also leave reviews on any podcast platforms. Tell us how much you like or hate us. It does help.
I was gonna say I'm gonna do a roundup for next week. So if you want us to read your review on the podcast, we most likely will. If it's good, should we try to have them work a word in?
No, because we always forget what the word was.
Yeah, I suppose. Just if you could work the word slug in, I'd be happy. But do what you can.
Oh shit! I think I was in studio mode the entire time I had the Squib picture up.
Yeah, it's
So it
not
didn't
up. I
actually-
just looked on screen.
Well, I removed it a while ago, but I just realized
You
that
never
I
made the
never left it.
transition?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Oh well.
They can Google it.
Well, I can turn it on right now.
Keep that furry trash off of here.
I'll just turn it on right now, and then that's a Squib. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the show. See you next week.
Yeah, no X2 stream tonight, by the way, guys, but we will be making our grand return tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing a 12-hour stream starting at 4:30 p.m. and then I'm going to be joined by Eck and Charlie at around probably like 8 or 9.
What's on the schedule? Obviously Empire War. What else?
Going to do some Empire War multiplayer. I'm probably going to do some RimWorld. I'm going to try to work on a few things before you guys join. Then I think we're doing Fortnite when you guys are there. I don't know if we're going to move to something else. Then me and Charlie will probably play League after you go to bed until he falls asleep. So maybe half a game of League. And then I'll probably do some GeoGuessr until the end.
Are you good at that?
I'm pretty good. I'm not cracked
it always
at
blows
it yet,
my mind when someone sees like a path and they're like, "Yep, this is Sri Lanka."
Like I've been playing a lot with Dana, and there was one where we got like, so you usually do like 5 rounds in the game, and we were doing a Canada
it's like
one.
Whoever has the fewest overall kilometers, whatever.
Well, it's we like play it together, so both of us trying to figure out.
Gotcha.
So there were 2 rounds in one of the ones where we got put in like the Niagara region, and it wasn't areas that I had really been to. Well, one was right outside my parents' old shop. That was easy.
Oh wow!
But then there was one that was like down a side street in Fort Erie, and which is like a smaller town just outside of Niagara, like a little bit south of it. And I'd never been there. The place we were put made it look like we were just off in the middle of nowhere, but we were like right next to a major street. But as soon as we got there, I was like, no, this feels kind of depressing, but also kind of like I feel at home here. And I just nailed it off.
Yeah, I feel that way whenever I see a Dartmouth strip mall. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is like, economic decay, but also